at our national conference. And we're part of course, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, for those of you who may not know, and that's the oldest real estate Black African American trade organization with 90 plus chapters throughout the U.S., which our focus is democracy and housing. And so our 31st president for the organization, Donnell Williams, was installed, and he has an aggressive agenda, which he has a mandate. Our numbers, Black homeownership is at its all-time low of 40.6%, and that is unacceptable. So we are going to ramp up. We're excited about the direction that he's going to help us to go ahead and get more Black homeowners into homes with creative, new, innovative ways to reach the consumers. We know that there are 1.7 million millennials that are eligible and qualify for homeownership. So he's going to focus on that a lot more because we have not been, that's been a gap that we have not been focusing on. And so we will have our numbers for our communities that we serve strategically, Oakland, the Bay Area, so that we can reach the consumers, not only first time home buying, down payment assistance, that segment as well, but also now we'll be including the millennials, which is the largest, they're even larger than the baby boomers. And so we're excited to be able to add that piece as well as the faith-based, that's something that we will be rolling out. We just did a faith-based certification class here in Oakland last month in July. And so we will be getting into the churches because that's something that we want to get into and foster. It's not just only for first-time home buying, but for preservation, home preservation, because the faith-based, we know that the churches are, for us, that has been a holding for us to grow our wealth and for us to get into the actual churches to educate them about home ownership, sustainability, as well as educating them about wills and trusts, possibly even reverse mortgages, all of those things. And then they may have children or grandkids that they can help in to talk about home ownership. So those are the things that the takeaways, and was just a lot of great information to come back, and that we are going to strategically work so that we can continue to work together, help our members to actually get more business, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are equipping you to go out to get more business, that we work together as Black realtors to, you know, when we have our buyer needs, our seller needs, that when Maria has a listing, or I have a listing, or I have buyers, we want to be able to bridge that gap. That's where we'll be able to narrow that gap, because the 40.6% is unacceptable. When we have our 2 million in 5 initiative to create 2 million new homeowners in 5 years, and that was something that was brought under a previous national president's administration. So it's up to us to really to work together so that we can make sure that our numbers are nice and tight.
Right, right. And so that's something that we could also work on as on the education side, and bringing additional member benefits is possibly bringing in someone to help guide our members on how to effectively market towards millennials, because
Absolutely.
we have tons of them, especially out, you know, right across the bridge in the city, where the tech industry is booming, and it's expanding to other states, but we're still the hub. And so, yeah, we definitely want to bring to you guys some valuable information on how to market to millennials. Also, do you know if there's, for people that missed, the faith-based training was phenomenal. We have another portion of the faith-based initiative, another segment of it, but for people that have missed the faith-based training, how can they get in, work their way in somehow into that certification?
Glad that you brought that up, because under the new president's administration, he's going to go a different civic engagement. It has its own committee now. Civic engagement is going to be separate from the faith-based, because civic engagement covers a wide range, and we know that if we're going to reach the millennials, a lot of them are not they may not necessarily go to church. They may are ones that like to sit at home. And watch like Joel Osteen. Like even me. If I don't go, I'm spiritually connected, but it's on through the phone or through the TV.
Right.
And so we're going to. That's a strategic and it's going to be a separate committee. But what we will do is under the faith base, we will be rolling out making sure that the certification portion, we may bring that back, and it's just going to be fine-tuned. But we will be rolling that out after the Congressional Black Caucus, which is on September the 11th through the 15th. We will be updating our State of Housing in Black America report. It comes out every September at the Congressional Black Caucus. We have sessions and everything. So it's going to be, they're going to actually have a press release this time. We're going to be at the press club. He's really got some really great strategic things that he's going to be implementing. So after that, we will be having our State of Housing in Black America forum. We will be rolling out some things that are going to be more like an expo type, faith-based type, going into the churches, because what's been successful under the faith-based, where they've been going in, is on Sundays after the church. Get them where they're there, and so we'll be hosting some things along that line. So we'll be doing a lot of great things under the faith-based initiative.
Okay. And then also for our members who have their own church homes and want to incorporate their churches with our initiative, yes, and work all together to basically bring business, should they reach out to you or?
Yeah, well, they can contact us directly. We have our website, and we will be, like I said, the best is yet to come. So if you go to arpboaklandrealtors.com, if you put your information there is a way that if you want more information, you go down, you put your information in, and then it will send us an email so that we can let you know. And we will, if we do not have your information, please put it in there and say, I want to be a subscriber, so that you can start to get all of our marketing information. And so without further ado, I think we want to go ahead and you can introduce our speaker.
Yeah, so we're going to bring up Deeana Owens. Yeah. Deeana Owens is joining us, the listing lady. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for your patience. You ladies waiting. Thank you for having me.
So,
our viewers.
Right. We are so glad to have you as a member, and in doing our webinars, we definitely want to spotlight our members. And so today we're talking about listings, and Marie touched on a little bit before you got here about the national conference that we just had, and how the state of Black housing is actually declining for the first quarter. And yes. So with that being said, not only do we have to step up our game to provide the most valuable information and support our sellers, but actually entice through the listings those buyers that we need to bring in as well. So
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So in the open market, it can be a very confusing market, because most listing agents in this market don't really use transparent pricing, right? So people will list their properties significantly below what they actually expect to sell it for. And then when you have buyers in the market that don't quite understand those type of strategies, they can just get frustrated really easy and just say, forget it. Like they'll say things like, we got outbid by over 200,000, or there was this many offers. And that could be a very negative experience for anybody. But at the same time, technically you can't really, like, if you were outbid by 200,000, then your agent may not have been informing you correctly about the house that you should be writing an offer on. Right. So it's a tough, it's an interesting market, and it requires, like in terms of Black home ownership decreasing, there are lots of Black homeowners, but when they sell, they want the full value for the house, right? So they're really looking at, what's the best offer, and so a lot of times it's not always easy for us to convince our clients to either put the money on the table, or sometimes our clients may not, some of the clients in our community may not meet some of the levels that the market is requiring.
Right.
So it's tough for us
Right.
because it requires us to get very creative about how to service our clients and how to maintain Black home ownership. And so I think one thing that we pointed out recently was we did an average sales price per zip code in Oakland, right? And then we had a loan officer help us find out, what does that mean? How much will you be paying per zip code, right? And then we compared that to FHA thresholds, where a lot of times we recommend FHA 3.5% to our clients. But when you recommend that, you realize that it's almost like modern day redlining, because there's only, I think, 4 zip codes left in Oakland where the average sales price doesn't exceed the FHA threshold, which is, I think, 726. Is that right? Somewhere around 750, but I think it's a little under 750. Right. So basically, Oakland, an easy way to say that is the average in Oakland is over 750. FHA won't allow you to do anything over that, right? So basically, there's only 4 zip codes. Most of them are East Oakland zip codes that you can still afford to do FHA. So what does that mean? That means that some people, you know, they may have a certain expectation of what a first-time home buyer experience should be like.
Right.
You know, in some cities, you should be able to become a first-time home buyer for under $300,000. You know, in cities like Atlanta, you should be able to do that for like $200,000. You know what I mean? In certain areas, even Atlanta though is getting higher. But in Oakland, first-time home buyer means $500,000, right? And so it's just a whole different conversation, right?
Right. It is a different conversation.
So like 3% of even $500,000 is a whole different 3% than it is in Atlanta, right? So we're talking, you know, $15,000, $20,000 as opposed to $3,000 in another market. You understand?
Yeah, we do have some down payment assistance programs that even the AC Boost will be coming out to our monthly breakfast meeting this month, but that you can get up to $150,000, and then also that one of our lenders, or well, most of our lenders, they do the Cal Halfway, which is 3% now. And Harry was just telling me that they've, with the interest rates being lower, that they actually do have where you don't have to pay back the down payment and all. So I think in that sense that we have to, the mindset.
It's all about the education, right? Because there are things out there that can offset the things that have made the Oakland and the Bay Area market so difficult.
Right.
But we just have to have that reality check, and we have to educate our community on the different things that are available. Because it starts to get confusing sometimes when you say like first-time home buyer assistance or down payment assistance.
Yes.
So it's important for people to align themselves early with realtors so that they can be fully informed.
Exactly.
Right, and that's what it is, because the myth is, and we were at the national conference, and that even for the millennials, we will be coming out with an aggressive campaign, because there's 1.7 millennials that, as far as in our market, where we're going to be able to specifically have the data to know how much, but they make over $100,000 in already for home ownership. So we will be targeting that market as well. That's what our national president, because we know that that market has not been serviced, and so we will be incorporating that piece.
You know what I think is interesting, and what I think people are finding is that the new wave of homeowners, which does meet some basically millennials, they actually have a different living standard. Like, and I don't want to like generalize, but I've been reading lately that like dormitory style living, like condo living, close quarter type living, as opposed to even the front and the backyard and things like that. People are moving to a smaller quarters style living. So I think it's also important for the market to evolve, right? Like in Oakland, we have a shortage of housing, but people are looking at tiny houses and stuff like that now. Like people don't need as much square footage anymore. Like they're changing their requirements and what's important.
Right.
So I think it's important for us as industry professionals. We like extemporaneous today. We just flying off the hip.
Right.
That's how you know we live. And I'm sorry, like I walk in the middle of the conversation, not realizing we were live, but that's how we do it. We just, and we're business professionals, so we got the phones ringing, y'all know.
Well, and there's just touching on the dormitory style living. I know there's one developer I know that's in West Oakland, and he actually flips to rent, and all of his rentals that he flips, that's what he does. He almost sets up the bedroom as if it's a dorm, so all of the storage spaces and all of that are all within the room, so that they are confined within their room, and then they have their shared space as far as the bathroom, living room. And
Right.
so there's going to be a different way of how we look at listing properties and soliciting buyers and getting them in the mind frame of how they will buy. They might, going after millennials might not just be, we're going to get you into your first house. It may be a different mindset as we're going to get you into your first investment property, and this is how your lifestyle or your living situation can be, and also have home ownership at the same time. But our topic today is listing, and I know that's what everybody's waiting for, listing from A to Z. So we are going to get into that. And so, of course, with listing a property comes actually, we're going to start at even before listing a property and actually meeting with the client. So can you share with us some of your nuggets that you would give other people in the industry on how to sell your listing or how to prepare your listing to the seller even before it gets on the market?
Right, so basically, first, for a listing agent, my sale is selling myself to the client, right, so that I can get the listing. So in preparation for that, you know, and lots of different agents have different ways that we're acquiring new business. Right now, like a lot of people are paying for leads online. There are things like artificial intelligence where, you know, they tell you who's most likely to sell. There's lots of things out there, so there's a different approach for everyone. And a lot of my approach is farming, which is like picking a specific neighborhood and then kind of, you know, doing things like direct mail and mixing that in with different marketing, layers of marketing, like for example, social media, like maybe they already received a mailer from me, and then I start to maybe send some type of social media, things of that nature. So when I finally get the phone call, what I'm trying to do is actually get them to call me. You know, when they come to you, you already have a little bit more rapport because they've done their research, they went to your website, they went to Yelp, they went wherever they felt like they needed to go to at least feel like they were ready to call you. Right. So I spend lots of money, time, and energy on marketing myself so that they can call me as opposed to cold calling people because it feels a little more solicitative. Mm-hmm. So once I get that phone call, I try to be prepared for it. So I try to like for example, if I did make a call to someone that was a lead and they didn't answer, I make sure to save the number and the address, right? So if they call me back, I know what I'm referencing. Oh, okay, yes, you're home on, you know, 99th and such and such. And then at least if you have enough market knowledge, you can kind of say that a 2-bedroom in that neighborhood was built in a certain year because they all, you know, were built in like, you know, about 100 years ago, and they're about 1,000 square feet. And if you know your market, you can speak to them intelligently about how much you expect to get it. So I would say the first important thing is knowing your market, right? Whether that means for you to go on tour regularly, or whether that means for you to every morning you check the new listings in, you know, the hot sheet, right? Everybody doesn't have to do the same thing, but you need to have something that are your research things that you're on top of the market. If someone says, yeah, my neighbor sold his house last week, and you can say, oh yeah, he got $890 for that one, and I think, you know what I mean? If you can speak to exactly, then you already set your credibility, and that's very important because there's a lot of agents, everybody knows somebody with a license, right? So you step, whether that's, you know, that first conversation on the phone or the first conversation in person, if you can have some things that you already know that have gone on in their market, then that is definitely, you know, a lifesaver. Secondly, I try to be in front of the computer and, like I say, pull comps, you know what I mean, and speak to them off the tongue, you know what I mean? So comps is very important, giving them a comparative market analysis of their home. And people like to know, for me, recently I've done a lot of kind of as-is sales, right? So, but people like to know, what would be my value if I sold it as is, or if I were to maybe put some money into the property. Right. So you also kind of want to have some market knowledge as it relates to a fixer versus a turnkey property, right? So those are some of the things that I do. I do go pretty extensive into actual physical listing presentation. I spend some good marketing dollars on being able to provide them with like examples of like brochures that you might be printing for them when they do put it on the market. Lots of market information. I actually try to like cover so many bases that there can't be anything that they ask for that I didn't cover, right? Like you want to know how much would it cost for staging. You kind of want to be able to speak to those things. And I actually was watching a video this morning, because you always got to be learning from other people too. So you want to surround yourselves with listing agents that are doing better than you are, right? That you aspire to be like. And there was a gentleman, and he mentioned that he even schedules his stager and maybe contractor for like 2 hours after the listing appointment, so that he can say, well, yeah, I actually have them coming by later, so that they can come and give us a quote. Now, I've never tried that. Awesome. But I mean, it's not like you can't.
Assuming the same.
It's a bit assuming, but
Right.
sometimes you have to be a little presumptuous in order to, you have to speak like when we list. Yeah, it's not if we list, it's always when we put the market on the property, when we do this. You own it. You have to own it up front. Okay, you have to speak as if it's already your listing and make them feel like, well, where do I sign? You know what I mean? You got it all covered and you've already taken ownership. And then also, what's very important, don't forget to ask for the business. Like, we go through this whole thing, right? We put all this stuff on the table, and I can do this and I can do this, and then we back it up and say, okay, thank you, bye. Right. And it's like no follow up, and you didn't even like fully ask. You know what I mean? So when you put, when you put that presentation together, and I actually, I'm over at Klein Real Estate, and I like to look over Kenny Fast's shoulder. I don't get too close. I don't let him know. But I'm like, hey, Kenny, what's that? So one thing I noticed that he does fill up his presentation with everything. But he puts the listing presentation on top. Because if you don't need to get to that information, then you don't need to waste your time talking about it. If they're ready, you don't want to talk yourself out of a transaction, right? So if they are already talking numbers, there's no need to really start talking about selling people on what they're not buying, right? So you want to pay attention to their buying signals. You want to do more listening than talking. But when you start hearing those certain things, those buying signals, then that's when you pull out that from the listing presentation. If they say something about marketing, okay, that's when you pull that out. But if they go straight to price or something or commission, then go straight to the listing presentation. So be fully prepared, but don't sell what they're not buying. Listen for what they're talking about. Some people are buying price. Some people are buying speed. Those are two different things. If you want your house sold in 14 days versus you want $1 million, then we need to take our time and stage this place and get this clutter out of here. You know what I mean? So you need to listen to what's their priority, because sometimes the highest price is not even that important to them. They just need to get it sold before the tax man comes in. So understand their needs. I didn't know what specifically you guys would want to speak to, but I hopefully, me just kind of speaking off the head is helpful. But understand your needs, understand your client, listen, and they always say, wait, why am I talking? You want to let the client, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. It's because you should do twice as much listening as you do speaking, because the more you hear, then you find out, okay, they'll say something like my sister, my brother, and then you ask, oh, okay, is there other people that need to help make this decision? Exactly. And you want to make sure that you're having all the decision makers there at that meeting, or else you're wasting both of your time, and they might have different criteria for what's important for them. This person might want speed, this person might want more money, then you might have a conflict and you might not have a listing at all, right? So I think practice. You want to maybe role play some of these conversations with your colleagues. You want to YouTube, because there's always new scripts coming out. You want to feel like you're not stuttering. Everything that I'm saying is things that I've done before. I stuttered. They started asking me about commission. I wasn't really ready to kind of respond to that. So you kind of want to speak very confidently, negotiate confidently, be kind of firm in your negotiations, because you're also demonstrating how well you can negotiate when it's time for their house, right? So if the first thing you do is give up your commission, then what you're gonna do when it's time for them to sell their house is give up on the price, right? So you also gotta keep that in mind, well, if you wanna go to that agent whose main value proposition is that they have reduced their price, what level of service do you think they're gonna provide you? And how do you think they're going to negotiate on something? If they're willing to give up their own livelihood, what would they give up of yours? Right? They're cutting their own dollars. They're definitely going to cut your dollars to make the deal happen. So you understand that too, right? So get people thinking, right? You really got to just be ready for those conversations, because it's getting more competitive. There's more information out there. People are online finding this. So when you have these conversations, a lot of these sellers feel like they know more about this stuff than you, and sometimes they will. They know about who just sold last week, and you might not be in that neighborhood quite as frequently, right? That's right. So yeah, I don't, I know this is a back and forth, and I feel like I'm just
No,
on the
no,
soapbox.
no.
but-
We have different formats now, so
Right.
you can talk as much as you want, or
Yeah.
we can do question and answer.
No,
Well, we recorded, so you can just like what?
Right, and so some people are in smaller real estate companies, and when they hear listing presentation, they get overwhelmed, like, oh, I'm not really creative, or
Or what does that mean?
what does that mean?
Right. Well, it could mean whatever it means for you. Because I come from a little bit more of a corporate background. So I like tangible items. I like to be able to hand them something to show them. So in a listing presentation for me, the first page or so would be like my resume, houses I've sold. I set mine up. I'm sorry that I didn't bring one with me. But mine is like, I know that I have what's going on in the overall market, right? So I have like a Oakland snapshot of the Oakland market. Then I have your micro market, right? So that's within a half mile of your home, right? And I compare your home to the Oakland market, and then I have what I've done in Oakland, right? So for example, maybe the Oakland market says that sellers generally get 5% more than asking, right? And maybe their micro market gets 10% more than asking. But I currently get 19% more than asking, right? So when I'm like, listen, if you're gonna be, looking at different agents, ask them how do they compare to the overall market. I currently I like to kind of be a numbers driven person, but not everybody is that either. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna tell you to show them Excel spreadsheet if that's not your thing, But your thing might be, or another thing that I have is every now and then I go on MLS and I see some of the worst photos. And I'm like, it's almost embarrassing that they posted those, right? I'll take that and put that in my listing presentation.
Bad
so them and me. This is what happens when you hire an agent because someone just told you to hire them, or you didn't really do your research, or whatever. Even sometimes those names. No, like I see some agents that I know, like,
where's your effort?
She didn't even rotate the thing in the house sideways. I'm sorry, y'all. I literally saw the house was sideways on MLS, y'all. I screenshot, I took that thing and put it in my listing presentation. And this is what happens when you don't really hire someone who who really kind of sets the bar higher. And so this is why I can command a higher commission, because I provide a higher level of service. You hire this 4% agent, this is what you're gonna get. And you're gonna lose money on your house. We provide the professional photography. And some people need line items.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna charge you 6% or 6.5% or 7%, some people even do 7%. This is what comes in my package. Maybe I recently have decided, now I'm giving y'all a little secret here. I don't know if I should, but I recently have decided to come to like a tiered thing. If you want this is it. If you want this is it. If you want this is it. Everything is always negotiable, We can pull this off here and put it here, But when you negotiate it needs to be if, then, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I reduce my commission, then that means we're gonna have you cover the staging, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we do this, because you don't just want to get into the habit of giving things up, because that's how you keep reducing your value, and then you're not really negotiating anymore. You're just taking orders.
Exactly.
And you have to maintain your value, so you have to do a little give take.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can put it in writing, then they're like, oh, well, I want the full package.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave nothing on the table. I'm gonna have to go ahead and give me your 7%, because I want my staging. I don't want my pictures to be sideways. Right. Or whatever that is. Yeah. And then when you do the numbers in your head, you still make your profit. If you cover the staging on certain, maybe you cover it for properties over a certain amount.
Yeah.
We do have to become more competitive. People are giving things away.
Yeah.
So we gotta,
Yeah.
but there's a numbers game too, though. The more business you get, then it all makes itself up. So be prepared, put yourself in the position of the seller, because they have a lot of leverage, right? Most sellers in Oakland are at least sitting on $500,000, right? So it's like, you're sitting down with like a $500,000 there, right? So present to them as such.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned the photos too, because some people think if they're in a certain area, like, oh, this is an easy sale, I'm just gonna take some photos. You have to go into every listing as if this is the marketing for your next deal.
Absolutely. And everything you do, you should feel like you're interviewing. Your open house, There's almost always a neighbor that comes to the open house, and they're not just coming to see their furniture. They're coming to see what that house might sell like and how it was staged by this agent because they know they're ready to go on the market in 6 months to a year. Exactly. 9 times out of 10, when someone goes on the market, someone on that block goes on the market within the next 6 months. So present yourself. Sometimes I get lazy on an open house and I'm like, do I really feel like putting all these signs out? And then this girl on here is like, you better get them signs out because you don't know what homeowner has heard of you. And then my CEO open house sign, I'm like, oh, she really is running in this neighborhood. So I might give her a call. So every opportunity you have to be getting your name out, especially if you focus it in a certain community. Because I've done both. I'm gonna send everything to the whole city of Oakland and see who calls, and then I'm just keep sending to these same people, and it's more effective when you actually focus on the same group, because they say that people need to hear from you 6 to 10 times before they actually call you. Right. So if you're trying to work the listing side, and you don't want that to be 6 to 10 calls, because then they're gonna get it. But if it's like, oh, I saw her name on the park bench. Oh, I saw her thing in the grocery store. Oh, she sent me something in the mail. And now here she is on Facebook. Let me call this girl because I've been thinking about selling this property. It's like Pepsi or Coke, right? They spend money just to be in our heads, so when we think of drinking, then we think of having a Pepsi, right? We have to think of ourselves more as businesses, because when it comes to taxes, you're a business. I hope we need to have that. You better have that C Corp, S Corp. I keep forgetting which one it is. Make sure you file your taxes. That's a whole different class. I'm sure they'll do one for that.
Right.
But
tax time.
Treat yourself. Don't just look for your next client. You need to be looking for your book of business. Right. Because if one falls out, y'all know how we eat. This is a commission-based thing. So be fully prepared for your clients. Establish rapport early. Be credible. Do your research. Use all these different things that are out here available to us. They have apps now where you can go in there and see how much that house is worth. Right. Align yourself with a savvy escrow officer. And accounting because they got all kind of new tools now.
Right. Really do.
When you go door knocking, you can find out what house is owner occupied versus what isn't. Right. So I think the main thing that I want to say is being a realtor doesn't mean that you don't work 8 to 5. You know what I mean? Because sometimes we don't use our time most wisely. Right. Grind like you did when you were working an 8 to 5 job, because you are. You're just doing it for yourself now. Exactly. So yeah, use your time wisely. Go on tours. Just stay knowledgeable. Stay up on your game, because there is some youngsters coming up behind this area. We gotta stay on our toes.
Exactly, especially on the technology front too. So.
Absolutely. And we get resistant. Like I know, I thought I was a millennial, but I'm not. Every time something new come out, I'm like, oh God, what now? I just want to stick to what I know, but no, we have to evolve. Amazon just made an announcement that they're aligning with a lot of the reality companies like Coldwell Banker. So it's basically like, go on here, click on here. So there's lots of different things that are disrupting the market.
It is disrupting.
But at the same time, Amazon ain't gonna provide nothing that a Deeana Owens does. You understand? They can get you a TV, they can get you an Amazon, but they don't negotiate like me. They don't have the relationships like I do. So instead of us getting fearful, we need to remember where our value is and fully utilize it early before it's too late, right?
Right. No, that's very important. The human side is just really, in going into this technology-based market, is really pushing the human side of what we do and how we interact with people. And you hear about the iBuyers online, but they have nothing. Nobody's explaining disclosures,
right?
Or any of the
East 14th versus International Boulevard, right?
Exactly.
They're not doing that on open homes, okay? You and I, we've been growing up and raised in these neighborhoods, so we can tell them, things that the computer won't. But one thing to that, in addition to that, though, because when you see the writing on the wall, you got to respond. So I'm glad that you brought me to talk about listings, because listings are leverage. Being on the buyer side, you don't have quite as much control, and it's easier for these disruptors to disrupt the buyer side of the market, right? It's like click and we'll write the offer for you. Right. Whereas on the seller side, the demographics are slightly different. They're not quite as some of them aren't quite as tech savvy, because we're working with some of the different older people who are not really app heads, right? No, they're not really on Yelp, right? No, they might not even use their email. So there is still a whole market of people that we don't have to be worried about, you know, and so the listing side of the business, I feel like, is not quite as easy to disrupt until these people become listing, you know, until these current buyers start selling, and then, and that'll be soon, you know, 5 to 10 years, but at least if we focus now, you know, we still have a little bit of edge here. But yes, you do have more control on the listing side, and then once it's sold, you know, no knocking to the buyer side, because I realize I've been leaving a lot of business on the table by not focusing on buyers as well. But I do feel like in terms of disrupting our industry, we might have a little bit stronger hold on the selling side of the transaction for a little while, until somebody figure out how to get that side too. And then I'm just gonna be teaching yoga. Namaste.
All right. And so what about, you mentioned staging. So what about your team? Do you keep a consistent team? Do you switch up on who you use for your contractors, your stagers?
No, I think well, there's always a couple that are like staples that you call first, but I think I try to keep the list refreshed, because I think that sometimes people can get comfortable with your business, you know? And I know that I don't know everybody, and that I'm still kind of fresh in this, so I'm always trying to like add to my list of vendors.
Right.
But yeah, you definitely want to have your go-to guys who can at least give you a few quotes up front, you know? Yes. Yeah. And then we have companies now that will pay to cover that, you know, the renovation of the house and then take it out of escrow.
Right.
Yeah.
So us as agents need to find out how to compete with stuff like that too, you know? So we have to become more savvy. We definitely have to stay on top of our game.
Yeah, those companies are very rampant in the Bay Area, and so
just throwing money. Some of these companies got like, it's like, how fast can we spend money?
Right.
Yeah, and so us as independent contractors,
they see that quick return on investment because they know they are motivated to sell, and so yeah, that's a whole nother business.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, real estate is changing, but there is something to be said about relationships. Like you said, human factor.
That's right. That's what I would say. I said build your ecosystem, and that's what's, you know, been valuable for me, is the human touch. And if we continue to do what we do as real estate realtors, and keep that human factor involved, and then surround ourselves with building our network of professionals where we're actually helping each other. And when they say realtors working together, that we come and do that even more. So like when you have a listing, or I have a listing, everybody, we start to work that where we need to be having buyers.
Yes, I think working together will make us all stronger, right? Because like, okay, for example, I think last time you and I sat down, you had a multi-unit, and I think she has issues with maybe some tenants or something to that effect. I feel like you had just closed on a multi-unit, and your client maybe was trying to negotiate with one of the tenants or something to that effect, but I had just had a very similar situation, and we were able to share some information, and you were like, you know what, I'm gonna give that a shot. I'm not sure that we had, you know, thought about that one. So one thing is definitely using our resources, whether that be other agents in the market, or like you said, whether you have your contractors, your local people. Those are those things of value that are harder to disrupt, right? It's like, you know, we know local contractors, and people who can really get the job done, who can come in, whether it's termite or staging or all of those different things. Not only that, but we know other agents, you know, who have clients and buyers and experience and their own network. So yeah, you know, and we're stronger together, absolutely. The more information that we share, you know, it's just better. And especially in terms of maybe, you know, focusing on impacting our own community, as much as we circulate those dollars in the community, and as much as we circulate information, we all come out better.
Yeah. And so even with the listing, just where it doesn't end there. So at the time that you're actually closing escrow, how involved are you with the transition of them either moving out or relocating?
Yeah, I'm pretty involved, because this is a life transition for people, right? So it's not just the sale of a house. Sometimes it's tenant relocation, because I do a lot of investor properties. So I get very involved. Sometimes I become like a social worker. You will have situations where your client is like the successor trustee. They're the one running the whole estate, but they might have siblings that are not quite as responsible. I had one time where I had a seller, her father had passed some years ago, and she had a family member that had been living in the home for several years without ever, paying anything or helping to bring the place up. And then it's like, okay, where's she gonna go now? Because she's not even used to paying any of her own overhead, right? And so we had to like literally not only find the place, but like physically get her there.
Right.
Because she was not in good health. She was bedridden. And she was being taken advantage of by like local squatters. They were moving. She had like 10 squatters living in the house. Just the door stayed. Wow. Yeah, it was a sad situation. There was all kinds of things. So yeah, we had to like get some services involved. And I was like, well, I'm like, this is like beyond what people think real estate agents do, right? Like, and we had to make sure that the place that she moved to, they made meals for her. And like, so it really got into, so I've done a lot of helping people transition into, what do we call it? It's not elderly, it's like facilities for 55 plus, right? Assisted living and sometimes independent living, right? Yeah, but you've been living here for I've had a lot of clients that, their spouse passed. Yeah. I have one client now who his wife passed at least 3 years ago, and all of her shoes, everything's still in the closet, right? So this is not just selling the house, this is about like therapy, you know what I mean? Helping people get to the place where they understand where you actually need some help. Living here alone is probably not the best situation for you. Right? So it goes way beyond what people think. We drive around with a fancy car and we just close a bunch of deals, right?
And a sign in front of this close.
Right. Half the time you may have been working for a whole year before that sign went up in the yard. You may have done some family counseling and so many different things. Yes. So we have to understand that this is when it comes to like getting the listing and everything, it's a sales cycle, and it could be a 6-month to a 2-year cycle easy. Most people don't call me and list with me that same day. I love those ones though. The ones that are ready when I get there, it's probably 10% if that. Yeah. So it's just about being connected. It's about being fully involved. It's about caring. It's about being that agent that's like just not there for the wrong reasons,
Exactly. Because that story.
I remember one time you and I, you had one. We often have these situations where it's like, man, it's a tough situation for the family.
Right.
Like we got a deadline or else they might lose it. Right. You know what I mean? So yeah, so there are so many things that go behind that are behind it. But when you finally close, it's such a good feeling, right? And you've helped two families because you've helped the one that's selling, and you've helped, even though you don't represent the buyer necessarily, you've helped them become a homeowner. You helped coach your client to accept their offer, right? So you kind of controlled that to some degree. So yeah, I've helped a lot of people. I have a client now. She just left and moved to Mexico, and she offered to buy my ticket to fly down there with her because she needed help. She had 3 dogs and everything, and she's like, Deanna, I'm a little scared.
There's some new businesses out that are coming out right now that are actually working with agents for people that are looking to retire out of the country, and they're finding like.
I think there is a market for that.
Yeah.
I'm realizing most of the clients that are selling are not selling to buy in the next neighborhood. They're selling to leave.
Right.
And
that's
a lot of
them
them
about the international buyers, and that's another because they're not talking about just people who are coming here, but then people who are leaving as well. They have that piece as well.
Yeah, I think there's a market for that. I also think there's going to be a new market for realtors to help people looking to find a place to rent. I've been getting a lot of questions about that lately.
Right, about property management.
No, the tenant wants you to find them an apartment.
Oh, right.
And they'll pay you because they don't have the time, or they don't, there's a new market, and this was a big thing when I was a realtor, or when I got my license in New York. When I was in New York, if you wanted to find an apartment, you had to pay a realtor a broker's fee to help you get an apartment. And I feel like this market is creating itself here in Oakland.
Yeah, I can see that. Because we've had some actually even within our organization where they've been asking if we had, property that there's somebody.
Right, there's been a lot of questions.
Any place to rent. And the more they look, they start getting to the point where they would be willing to pay you to help them with that, or just find a place.
Right.
So the market is changing, so it's important to stay on top of everything. Like, I hate when someone asks me about something that I don't know, but it's important also to just be honest. Like, you know what, I'm gonna look into that. You know what I mean? I did hear about that. I gotta get, you know, don't start talking about something you don't know. Because people can see through that too, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's like, you know, someone asked me about the redevelopment of the A's, the Coliseum, right? And you know, we read about it, but then half that stuff is an idea for 10 years before it finally breaks ground, right? But you also kind of want to know what happened with it recently at city council or whatever. You know, you want to try to stay as educated as you can.
Yes. Well, thank you, Deanna, for
Thank you
joining
for
us.
having me. I hope
And
this was
yeah, I
good.
think this webinar will actually maybe even spark more topics that we can build on for our membership and how to actually break down all the things that Deanna spoke about as far as listing property. So I'm just going to check and see before we sign off if we have any questions or any comments from our audience. Let's see here. If anybody has a question, feel free to just write it in the comments section. We don't want to leave you out of the conversation.
Anybody have any questions?
Right.
I was just all over.
Right. Any feedback on today's webinar?
Anything specific you guys want to know about? Let me think. Anything specific? Do whatever you can to set yourself apart from others, you guys. I even go as far as to try to make my signs reflect, you know, or lighting, you know, every little thing.
Everything.
Because there's what last time I think somebody told me there was like 20,000 agents in California.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like we got too many. It's too many. So just think of it that way. Stay competitive, stay on your toes, but also collaborative. Competitive, you know, friendly competition, but always be collaborating.
Right, and we did have a session on that at the conference, and so her name was Ella, the coach, and she was like, "What's wrong with you guys? You guys are not collaborating together. One thing, even like we say, me and you should go in on doing some vending together at some."
Absolutely.
She said, "I said, what's wrong with you guys?"
Well, that's one thing that we need to work on in our community between the realtors, the New Oakland, all Black realtors. We all need to bridge this gap because there are some communities that are doing a lot better than us in terms of working together, communicating and collaborating and educating each other. So let's take this opportunity, and I'll take this opportunity to invite you ladies and your viewers to the coffee office, 2 words together. Just a place where we can find each other. Black realtors and realtists find each other. We're doing it every 2 weeks. I'll make sure that these beautiful ladies inform you all and that you all are there with us.
We talked about that, remember, before we did the New Oakland.
Yes, we had the one real estate. Right. Well, you and I, as fearless leaders, we have to be honest. We've got so many things going on that we don't collaborate enough. But I'm glad that you guys invited me here.
Right.
We have put us together in the same space again, so that we can follow up where we left off.
Right. We have a couple questions. So first of all, Janet. Janet says, "Great info, Deanna. Thanks for sharing. Shout out to ARPB, Rhea Cotton, and Marie Sturgill, President ARPB. Regards, Janet." Thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
And we appreciate the feedback. From Sedalia, we have, so can we start listing the property at the value then below so that the buyers won't get discouraged?
I'm with you on that because I really hate this pricing thing, but it's almost like they've created a trend. Now if you don't do it, then people think you want more than your transparent price, right?
Right.
So I mean, if you do, I really would like to move back to transparent pricing because I think that it would just bring the market back to reality.
Right.
But
we almost need a social group for the Bay Area, just like the transparent pricing group where we are actually advocating.
This is what we really want for the house, right?
We're advocating for transparent pricing amongst our group of realtors.
I think it starts with us just doing it. And what I've noticed is the people that do price their, and I can't lie, I got a listing right now. We want more. So she probably, that might have been a little.
I saw 25.
We want more 50, but that's close. That's pretty close.
Right.
So we're not like 350 on the house.
Right.
But this is what I was gonna say. I recently saw someone with transparent pricing, but they put it in the notes like big bold letters, like transparent pricing. So I think we just have to kind of be, you know, it has to be obvious, unfortunately, because now,
Right.
now people, they don't expect it to be transparent, and so we almost got forced to just doing the same pricing strategy. But I'm with you, Ms. Benton, I agree. We need to go back to, you know, the more realistic pricing strategy. So maybe we should all agree that we should stay within like a percentage of what we really want, right?
Or be consistent with that message, transparent pricing.
Right, and the, okay, so
if the seller agrees.
Ms. Benton, you with us? Are we all gonna agree that we're just gonna put it in the notes? This is what I really want, and we're gonna price them as transparently as possible.
Just transparently as possible. I like it.
Right.
But that also requires us to start getting more listings, right? So that we can actually, because what happened was people influence the market. But if you got all the listings and you're doing it, then you will drive the market, right? So if we don't have enough inventory of our own, then my one little transparent listing isn't gonna make enough difference, right?
Yeah,
We have to start, and you know what else, maybe one conversation we can have on another one is, sometimes I don't want my stuff on Zillow or wherever. I want, you know, because I have reservations about that, right? Because it was good in the beginning, but now it's like we gotta buy our stuff back from Zillow, you know what I mean, and pay Zillow for our business now, so.
And one thing that they don't do anymore through the MLS is becoming soon. So one thing that that I had started doing, and I saw another agent at a previous office do as well, and I'm glad she's doing it. But when I was at the coming soon stage, I do the buy it now price. So even if your seller, you know, wants,
so it's kind of like off market kind
yeah.
of.
So even if your seller doesn't want transparent pricing, before you put it on the market within your community, as you're, you know, preparing to put it on the market, you list your buy it now price, which is the transparent price, so that they know going in, once you put it on the market, they know what your buy it now price was.
Interesting.
So that's another thing, and we're working on building within the Realtist group a page that we can share listings on. Is something we can
that's going to
adopt.
be rolled out at our next month marketing breakfast meeting. Eric,
it is.
Back from National Conference. He is very he's pumped up, and he's going to bring the scanner to the next breakfast meeting. We're going to start that there. Then I'm going to give it to our marketing person. Then we're going to start to roll that out every week, where we can start to get into our buyers and listings.
Yeah, I think.
And then the lenders, they can let you know, hey, I have 8 buyers,
This type of buyer, yeah.
or this type of buyer. So that gets us more engagement. So that's
Absolutely.
Awesome.
A centralized place for information is probably the first place where we need to start.
And that's where we're starting. He's bringing the scanner to the breakfast meeting and get it started. So he's serious about us implementing that. Harry Payne has been wanting to see that for the last few months at our meetings, and we between the scholarship gala that we just did in Realtist,
which was amazing.
Thank you. And so now this is top of the list, and we will be seeing it, and we will be rolling it out.
And
we're excited about that.
Lula Flower says thanks for that transparent MLS message.
Okay, I'm glad that even if it's just one thing or one person, I'm glad that some of this information is helpful, and I appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, ladies. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in.
Thank you, Deanna, for joining us.
Absolutely.
And you guys as well. And every month we do this, so stay tuned for our next webinar next month. And thank you for joining.
All right. Thanks. All right.
Thank you, ladies.
Yes, thank you so much.